there's an opportunity to seed peas, and they've done really well the second time around too. So that's the way we try to keep the nitrogen up. Phosphate, that's a bit of a challenge. There's different products that are on the approved list. So as Darcy was saying earlier, be sure to check with your certifiers. Janine's smiling. But there is a list there, and depending on what kind of soil you have and depending on what the condition of your soil is, there's opportunities there. When it gets into the other ones, such as sulfur or the micronutrients, again, there's opportunities there. They may not be used the same way as the conventional line of thinking would be, just to go and apply sulfur, but you might be able to make them more available to your plants with adding some biology or some different biology into your soil that would allow these nutrients to become available to the plants.
Yeah, we had brought a picture of an example of our green manure plow down. It's the fava bean plow down. And I'll just give you an idea of some of the growth that we're incorporating back into the soil for that nutrient.
And how heavy do you seed your fava beans?
We try to use 1,000 kernel weight, but they're generally between 2 and 2.2 bushels per acre. And the peas would be about 1 to 1.1 or 1.2 bushels per acre.
Oh my goodness, that looks nice.
That one is a little bit more on weed control, so Allan will talk about that one later.
Yellow flowers. But nice you put the cap in there so we get the perspective.
Yeah. So how tall was that? Approximately. What was it?
They can grow up to 5 feet.
Wow. What would that end up being, about 3.5, 4?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little bit taller than what the disc was when it was working. And the 4010 peas, those things don't grow up. They do grow a little bit horizontal, but we've had them up to 8 feet long, so there's lots of biomass there.
Wow.
So the trick is to find the heaviest disc that you can find.
Has anybody tried mixing the two?
We have, but we've never really had very good results. Every time we've tried seeding peas and beans together, one will grow and the other one won't. And it's not anything to do with the seed, because if we shut one side of the seeder off, the one that didn't grow very well in the mixture did really well by itself.
Okay, so it wasn't a fact that one picked up where the other one wasn't doing well, it was just
No.
one thrives with the other one.
Yeah. And we have no explanation for that, because there's lots of guys that seed 2 or 3 different crops together, and it does very well for them.
Have you tried anything else with the fava beans? Like a companion, or what do they call it? Intercropping with favas for?
Yeah, that's what I meant. We haven't had great success with that.
But, okay, I guess the peas, but anything else, like a cereal or like an oat or a barley or something, anything on that side that would be able to sneak through in between? Like, I guess I could see why peas wouldn't would have help with it.
Look at how thick it is, eh?
Yeah, well, I guess timing would have to be pretty cool that too.
When we first started, we did mix some oats with the fava beans a few times. That was not successful at all. We did try using rye, and rye, if you seed it in spring, it'll kind of cover the ground and stay there. But most of the time that was just a short-term thing, because like you see, there's not much sunlight that gets down through those fava beans, so they didn't do very well either.
So the oats got canopied and disappeared underneath as well.
And so have you, I was gonna say, so have you seen, like with fava beans, that just doing fava beans has been quite competitive as a green manure? Like it looks very lush and tall. I've never seen a green manure of fava beans that tall before.
It depends a lot on the weather, but yeah, we found our best success just seeding one crop like that.
What?
I'm not sure if everybody can hear the question, so I'll just repeat it.
Do you understand what I'm getting at?
Yeah. The question was, what size of fava bean seed were we using? We started with Fatimas, and they're a fairly large bean. there was a bit of a problem getting them through the cedar. I think those ones were the Fatimas there. And then when Snowbirds became available, we were using those ones because they're slightly smaller, but we didn't really see any difference in the
That's my
biomass.
question. So the biomass that you put back in, that didn't differ much?
And are you still using the Snowbird, or have you gone to a smaller one yet since?
I guess we're looking for smaller ones, but some of the seed this year, or that grew this past year, apparently isn't as big as what it has been in the past. So my understanding, the Snowbirds are going to be about 20% smaller. So I guess we might seed them a little bit thinner just because there'd be more seeds there, but we'll probably stick pretty close to what we've done before. So maybe the rest of you guys have got some comments.
What's your soil type and class? What's the class of that soil?
Crop insurance, it's 4 and 6, and most of it's Newdale clay loam.
Are you inoculating your cover crop or like your crops and seeds or not?
No, we're not.
Oh, you're not?
You're not inoculating your seed?
And how often are you guys putting a green manure in?
We worked a little bit on years, and we found the best rotation has been one green manure every 3 years, just to maintain our soil utilities. Just because we don't have animals on our farm, and so we're relying on that green manure to be a big fertility maintainer.
I just have to say though, one of the reasons I asked you guys is the nicest faba beans I've ever seen are on Carnegie Farms. So just thought they should be sharing whatever they're doing.
Yeah.
Is that typical what you see? Like, do you have 4 stands that are just thin and not happy? You don't want to tell us about, but like, is that something you typically see on your farm, or?
It is actually
Or
very
is that
typical
best
of what
of
we've
that?
seen. The weather over the last few years has played into that. Like with having wet years, it hasn't always been that great. But that has come to be our expectations for a good green manure plow down.
What about this past year with the hot and dry in the beginning? That probably, did that hamper it in the growth early on?
A little bit. I think the biggest dampering was in 14, obviously with the wet weather. The beans didn't do well anyway, but for the most part, our green manures last year was still pretty acceptable.
I like water, but not too much.
Not too much. We found that out.
Go ahead, Blake.
So what happens when you get the sound guy with like interest in gardening?
Well, that's why you were invited to be here now.
So I grow fava beans just in a garden kind of context, and I plant them like as soon as I can get the groundwork. Do you plant fava beans for a green manure quite early, like, or do you get like an early start on those? Timing wise?
I guess what the other thing we should maybe mention is faba beans, we're told, like a lot of water. So if it's a reasonably moist spring, then we use the faba beans. If it's a drier spring, we use the peas. But there's always an exception to every rule, because we've been told that faba beans can stand a lot of water, and at 14 we found out that they do drown. And we were also told that they don't freeze, and this past year we found out they do freeze. So, but to answer your question,
Freezes in the beginning side or spring
yeah,
side?
we had a frost towards the end of May that was a killing frost. And they didn't die, but they just didn't grow after that. And I think you were asking about whether that was typical. If it's too dry,
Was that wasn't after the frost, was it?
no.
He wishes.
But that's, go ahead.
No, that's.
To answer your question about timing, we also try and not seed every field in the rotation at the same time when its next rotation comes around. In other words, some of our fields we try and seed them as early as possible to try and get that second plow down. Other ones we seed after we've seeded all the rest of the crops, so that could be middle to end of June, just just try and stagger that a little bit for weed control.
Good. For those of you who weren't here this morning, my name is Jason Peters, and I work at Poplar Grove Farm, which is just an hour south of Winnipeg in Winkler. We're a larger organic farm, and actually much similar to what these guys do, we are also on a 1 and 3 year rotation for our green manure. Typically, what we've done in the past is a pea and oat plow down as a combination. We've experimented with all sorts of different ways of doing that, either starting to seed as soon as you can get into the ground, into the field, to delaying it all the way through August, and keeping the field black at the beginning. So what we found that seems to work the best is if you can plant it at the beginning of June. Peas and oats being a cool season crop, they seem to compete better with the weeds as opposed to if you were to seed them in July or in August. We've seemed to have had the best success that way. And similarly, it's about 60 days, and then we'll plow them down. So beginning of June, beginning of August, we're usually in there with the disc, disking them down. And following that, we like to plant a catch crop before our potatoes for the following year. So we like to go back a couple weeks later and plant a barley in mid-August. And this is to help to capture some of the nutrients that are being released by the working in of the green manure. And it also gives us a cover for the winter. So in our sandy soils, erosion is always a big concern, especially in the springtime with blowing. So if we have a cover, even if it's not living, on the soil, that makes a huge difference for us in the springtime. And usually by that time it's decomposed enough that you can work it, but not enough that things don't blow. So that's, I guess, as far as fertility on the farm, that's the crux of it. I mean, I would say 90 to 95% of it happens during that green manure year. We do a little bit of in-season stuff in our potatoes, in our onions, and well, that's basically it. But those are just kind of minor nutrient applications, and really the purpose is needed for nutrients necessarily. We've experimented a little bit with faba beans, not quite to the success of these guys here. That's really impressive. But it's something we're interested in, and also looking for a smaller seeded variety to see if we can get those populations, those plant stands up to help us compete with the weeds. Yeah, that's probably the gist of it.
No pictures?
No pictures. No, sorry.
His next panel, he's the lucky one to be on 3 panels today. So you have panels for the weed one, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Pictures for the weed panel, okay.
I've got a question as it pertains to organic matter. Have you found that green manures actually increase your organic matter substantially, or is that something that just takes a lot more time to build?
Well, you know, it does take time. Actually, this winter I went back and looked at all of our soil tests, because in potatoes we do a lot, usually every 3 years. And just looked at some of those levels of organic matter, and they haven't been decreasing, and in a lot of cases they've been going up slowly over the years, just by a point, maybe 2-3 points kind of
I
thing.
was speaking with one of your colleagues, and they were amazed that with all the green manuring, there's no increase in soil organic matter.
Well, he didn't talk to me, I guess. He didn't look through all those soil tests. I don't know. That's what I saw. And I mean, different fields are different, but this is kind of a.
They were saying basically it was just a net zero. Like there was just, you weren't losing any, but you weren't really gaining a whole lot either.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
It's an interesting observation.
Yep. Yeah. And depending, and I mean, potatoes are really hard on the soil. I mean, you're working that land a lot in those things.
What about you other guys? Is that something that you see? Do you see a major increase in our soil organic matter after green manures, or is it pretty much steady as well?
I'm not sure that we would see an increase because of the green manures. I think we see more of an increase in the other crops that we grow, because if you get a good oats crop, there's a lot of biomass that you work back. Wheat and barley can be the same thing. And those are mostly the crops that we grow. But many years ago, we were kind of led to believe that you cannot build organic matter. But if I look at our soil tests back from maybe around the 1980s, we would disagree with that, because I think you can build organic matter. But it's like Jason says, it may not be just with one crop, it may be a combination of crops.
So you've seen it increase over 30 years.
Yeah.
Don, excellent, yeah.
Does it probably have a lot to do with soil type as well? Lighter soils, it's a lot more difficult to build that with heavier soils. And maybe more soils.
Yeah.
on this thing.
Yeah, it definitely is. Like, that's one thing in the sandy soils,
Yeah.
you struggle with keeping that CEC up there and keeping that organic matter in. And I know on some of our conventional fields, we've seen that level, continue to fall.
With the fava beans, like, I can see how that would greatly help you guys. Why do you think you're having trouble to get them working for you? Jason,
Oh, me?
yourself. Yeah, because you're sandy soils. Like, I don't know, is it a soil thing in that case?
I don't know if it's a soil thing. I mean, this is the first year we tried it. So part of it was because we companion crop it with oats. Part of it is getting that ratio right so that the oats don't overtake the fava beans. I think we just have some more experimenting to do to try and make that work for us.
Do you think that the oats, like one of those grassier cereals, the oats is a big important part of that? When you're like I can see why it's pretty difficult with fava beans to try and make that work. But I'm trying to figure out a good combination. I'm doing a high percentage of fava this year. I want to try some different things. So, what's your feeling about that?
Well, I mean, we like the oats because of the biomass for one, and the other reason would be probably for the weed control, because it does tend to bush out and fill in the gaps between the peas, and it gives the peas something to work their way up. So that's why we like it. It's basically to cover that ground as quickly as possible. And I actually noticed this year we had a field that tested higher in nitrates in the springtime. And so it was probably 80 to 90 pounds, something like that. And we planted peas and oats, and our peas were still fixing nitrogen. Like the amount of nodules and they were red, just like all of our other fields that were lower, but they were still working. So we've been trying to figure that one out, whether the oats are maybe sucking up some of that available N, and so then there's not as much for the peas, and they start to come through, or maybe
making them do the work that you want them to do.
Yes.
Exactly.
Well, actually, that's
So-
Smart.
So maybe so we're still trying to figure that out, but there might be potential, even when your soil tests do get a little bit higher, like doing that 2 green manure crops in 1 year, that you're not wasting your legumes that second time around.
My name is Allan MacKenzie. I hail from the big metropolis of Nesbitt, Manitoba, 20 miles south of town here. We run a 3,000 acre mixed grain and cattle operation. My brother, he's got some additional acres organic on the side too there, and we share some machinery back and forth, but each have our own operations. He's certified organic. This is just some random. I'm totally computer illiterate, so my wife just threw some pictures together, random ones here, so I don't really have a format with them, but I was just snapping some different shots and stuff. But I'll just go on with my little bleed first to who we are. So we've been organic. We started in 2002. We were in the PMU industry for 30 years. We used to sell a lot of hay, alfalfa. We'll get on that one here later on. Just a very diverse mix of crops. We finish all of our own cattle, market them organically. Mark Valente was talking earlier in the morning here. We've worked with them lots over the years, shipping cattle south and west and stuff like that. So a little bit of what's going on up here. This here was my Field of Dream mustard field for this year. We do a lot of alfalfa in a rotation, or have. We're trying to shy away from that now. We've exported most of our phosphorus out, and now we're fighting the battle trying to get it back. So we are actually bringing compost in from a local feedlot here about 12 miles away. So what we're trying to do is the final year of alfalfa, when we break it up, we'll spread the compost on there at a fairly heavy rate, probably shooting for 10 to 12 tons to the acre, because we know we're very low, and I only want to do it once and maybe come back another 5 or 6 years, and there's a limited amount to go around. So I'm not trying to cover my farm with it in one shot, but I'd rather do a quarter section every year and try to set ourselves up for a very good crop. So we sowed this field of mustard here about the 20th of, I guess it's the 28th of May or so, and it was, like I said, alfalfa breaking, 12 tons of compost. It was, like I said, it looked really good. July 24th, the white combine came through, so that was kind of a bit depressing on it. Turned probably a 20 bushel plus crop into a 3 or 4 bushel crop, but that's nature of the game. That's what it looked like earlier in the year. That actually was all tame mustard. That's not wild mustard. There wasn't a single wild one out there.
You were happy to see that.
I was happy to see that. I had witnesses, right, Jen?
Glad you took the pictures.
Yeah. Another thing, we're starting to incorporate a lot of clovers into our rotation here. This field, we actually combined it for seed, so we're going to try this. First time I've ever combined sweet clover, just to have mostly for our own use, so we can throw lots of clovers in the mixture, not have to always be running out and buying some more. So I basically want to have a shed full of clover sitting there that I can always have a clover underseeded with our oats, or on a second year crop, sometimes even a first year crop, say a wheat or something like that too. And we've done lots of years where we've gone out with red and yellow clover mixture and broadcasted in our winter wheat the middle of April or something like that. This year we harvested the winter wheat, let the clover come back, and I grazed my cattle on at the end of, I guess, October. We got about 25 days of grazing off it. This one here is just a cover crop mixture. We've been down to Gabe Brown's lots. I don't know if anybody's heard of him. So we've been there over the years and following a lot of what he's doing with the polycropping and different things like that. So we're sowing lots of different mixtures in our crop years, our plow down year, sorry. What we're trying to shoot for now is a double cropping system where we have a yellow clover plow down, and then we turn around and we sow right in with a 7-8 way cover crop mixture that will have a lot of different diversity, high in legumes, clovers, forage peas, some warm season sorghum, millet, radish, turnips, that sort of crop. And then we'll turn around and we'll come graze the cattle November, December, trying to stretch things out and see how far we can go along. This shot here was my Field of Dream winter wheat here this year. We had same thing, nutrients. That was just from the feedlot at home there. We spread a pretty good dose of manure on there and had it worked in. It was a clover plow down the year before, and it ran about 50 bushel the acre. So I was really excited about that one. And a mile away from that field on the same half section, we had a clover plow down. It wasn't a very good one, and it did about 20. So the value of manure for us is huge. I mean, it cost us probably 150 bucks an acre by the time we haul it 12 miles and get it spread. But I mean, we pay for it more in the first year. Plus, we're hoping there'll be a lot of bang for our buck the following 2 or 3 years after. We're in pretty heavy clay loam, so I don't think we're going to be losing a lot of it. It's not leaching on us or anything like that. Soil testing, we're trying to shoot for every 2 to 3 years just as a benchmark. I really do follow the organic matter levels. I just like seeing where we're at there. We've definitely been going the right direction. The alfalfas, I think, helped a lot early on there for that part. I bet you we gained 0.5% in the last 10 years since I've been following it. It's like I said, back to alfalfa. It's a great crop if you manage it the right way, but like I said, we didn't really know what I was doing at the start there, and we sold a lot of dairy hay down to the States and that, and we exported a lot of nutrients, and now I'm really paying the price. We have very, very poor phosphorus levels, and so I use alfalfa very sparingly now. We used to have 1,000 acres of alfalfa in, and now I'm down to a couple hundred. And if I can keep finding neighbors I can certify their hay fields with, and they'll keep telling me, hey, I'd bring every bale in that way I could, and import the nutrients. Because like I said, alfalfa, unless you can either feed it in the field or graze it, there's uses for it there. But for us, even feeding it, we got to the point half our land scattered too far away. You're trucking it. We're robbing it from one field and moving it to another field, and then what do you do about that other field later on? Because you can't bring the manure back if it's 7-8 miles away on some different land. So that's kind of where it sits. And back to the cover crop one, we found now that when we're grazing our yearlings on these cover crops there, the very worst case scenario, we're at a break even. We'd lose $150 an acre on a plow down year with all your expenses in there. Where now we're zero to plus probably $50 an acre. So being able to incorporate the livestock in there on a grazing scenario really works well. And that's where the yearlings are nice, because they're pretty flexible. So we have some tame pasture at home that we can graze at the start there, and then we will turn around and we'll graze the cover crop midsummer, and then turn around and go back to that perennial again, let it give it some time to go. And then if we have the right year, we can go back in a second time on that second plow down or whatever too. The livestock, like I said, it's kind of a bittersweet thing. They take up a lot of time. They really do work good for certain scenarios. Honestly, if they could show up for about 2 months out of the year, would be just about right most of the time for the cover crop grazing. So don't worry if you don't own a cow or whatever. If you can work something out with your neighbor, truthfully, it might be a better fit than running out and owning a bunch of your own.
And they'll probably be glad for the break.
Exactly right. Yeah, if you could work a deal like that out. The one picture there, sort of this thing's kind of took off on its own, so I'm not gonna pretend to. We got about 140 cows out where I was rolling it, so that's gonna be my future hemp field next year. It was an alfalfa field, and then this is the first year we bought a bale unroller, and so what we're doing is just basically moving over every 30 feet every second day and rolling the hay out, and we don't have any waste left. We used to bale graze on tame pasture, which worked fine because you didn't have to get back through the residue after, where this way the bale unroller is doing a very nice job of covering ground. We're going to double or probably triple our acreage, I would say, of coverage this year just by being able to spread the feed out on the ground too, and they're utilizing it that much better too. It's a little bit more work, but I got lucky and I got a decent hired man, so he's doing most of that, so I can be here doing things like this.
So that was the shot of the cattle in the long row?
Yes, that was the shot of the cattle in the long row,
Yeah.
and that was actually one bale. We same talking about some bales that we had brought in there. There's some really big ones that are over a ton, and so you can actually go a long ways when you're covering the field that way too. And so we feed about 6 bales every day to those cows, and then we do have 100 and some yearlings in the feedlot at home, so we'll haul that out next summer on another field of plow down. Oh, right
There
here.
it is,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a great shot there. And so that was, like I said, that was all just one bale, and they just go on both sides, and then we'll feed in between the 2 rows of where I fed there the following day or whatever, so they're not having to eat through any manure or whatever like
Right.
that. And so yeah, that's about what we're up to.
That kid's not running away from that machine.
No, it's even shut off, Blake, I promise.
Well,
That's how we make sure they stay in shape, Blake, around.
Any
He's
questions
not
for?
running away from it. He was running us a few minutes earlier.
Any questions for Al? We're gonna have to wrap this up because we've got Brenda on deck, but.
I have a question though. I'm following pretty good along with everything so far. Maybe Joanne could type in there some, or Jace or some of you guys. Now, on the hay side, you're exporting, and same thing, Alan and I've talked lots about doing air all the wrong things when I got. So exporting out, and then you've got your cows, and you put them in your back end. You're recycling it around that, what I think around 85%. I hear 15 is getting lost. So when you're doing your breeding and your plow down, or disking in, however you want to call it, now you're kind of recycling the same way, but your net benefiting a lot more than that, I understand, right? It's coming out of the air, coming out of the soil, it's breaking down. You follow where I'm going with this?
No, summarize it a bit more.
Okay, so I guess you're drawing with the hay, you're taking your nutrients out, boom. You're putting, by spraying your manure or grazing or what have you, you're putting back maybe 85% what you've taken out. But when you do a green manure, you're actually benefiting on your nutrients drastically more, but you're really just rotating, you're drying, those plants are bringing out of the ground and then you're putting them back in again. Follow what I'm saying?
It's like alchemy, you're transforming it.
Well, right, it's coming out, most of us, your benefits out of the soil and the air, I guess, is where it is. What's the versus, like, does anybody understand what I'm talking
I think he's basically saying like you're getting nutrients back out of the air, like carbon and nitrogen, but what you guys kind of were saying you're losing maybe more is the phosphorus, which your plants aren't able to get from anywhere. So that's what's kind of leaving the farm. Right?
That's right.
Is that something?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of curious where net benefit of green manure over where you're losing on your hay.
Can I just comment on the green manure part thing? Because we have actually done some research on that, and where we haven't studied the phosphorus, all the other nutrients, but we've looked pretty closely at what's happening with the nitrogen when you graze a green manure crop. And so, yeah, you are taking some off with that animal, like that 15% or whatever it is, maybe a little lower with the beef animal. But the thing is that what you're putting back on is something that is pretty much immediately, or at least some of it is immediately available to the plant. And so you're kind of you're taking that nutrient cycle and hitting fast forward, basically, by processing those through the animal. So even though you have taken out a little bit, the stuff that's there, instead of just sitting there, is actually working for you. And we think probably it's happening with the other nutrients too. So that's a bit of the science behind why you can still get all the nitrogen benefit from a grazed green manure, plus get livestock off of it. Does that help with your?
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
But
Summation.
John,
Oh.
can you also, another question?
Yep.
Sorry, in regards to the green manure, somebody was talking about how green manure isn't adding a lot of humus into the soil.
Not
so-
hummus, you eat hummus.
Humus.
Humus.
I know what you're talking about.
You grow chickpeas, then you make hummus.
But is that because the green manure is in the active part of, so it's being used?
Yeah, so
opposed to-
the green manures, the legumes are adding nitrogen. The other nutrients, they're just moving around. So they're sucking them out of the soil, and they might grab some phosphorus that has never been used by a plant ever before and bring it into the cycle, but they're not actually making phosphorus out of nothing. Like they're not actually magical creatures, right? But yeah, they're just ramping up that cycling of it.
And I know you have more questions. Thank you very much for answering that. But Brenda